For decades, Don Felder played haunting notes that defined an era. Behind those golden notes, a storm was brewing. What occurred? He suggested taking a month off. An early dispute about how much and how hard to work. Fans enjoyed the harmonies and hits, but backstage was less harmonic. Felder is opening up after years of enigmatic interviews and extended silences. Genuinely speak. He displays more than guitars and splendor. Power, quiet, and what happens when the dream rots inside. One unheard story changes the narrative. Discover how deep the fissures ran. The Eagles added more than a guitarist when Don Felder joined in 1974. It featured a fresh sound that propelled the band from country rock performers to rock superstars. The Eagles' harmonies and laid-back California approach were exemplified by Peaceful Easy Feeling and Tequila Sunrise before Felder joined. But Felder, who had played with southern rock bands and was proficient in hard rock guitar, added an edgier, electrified sound to the quartet. His strong performance on Already Gone on the Border album marked a change in the band's sound. Felder went from sideman to central creative contributor. His guitar arrangements defined the Eagles' character as they headed toward a stronger, radio-friendly rock sound. The 1975 album One of These Nights featured Felder's complex guitar lines and beautiful vocal harmonies on Too Many Hands and the title tune. Felder's music contrasted with Glenn Frey's pop sensibility and Don Henley's lyrical skill, blending technical and melodic sophistication into the band's most successful time. Felder's arrival boosted the group's commercial success. One Night would be their first #1 album. Felder's songwriting may not have been recognized, but he helped make the Eagles sound famous. In addition to Hotel California, Felder co-wrote Victim of Love and Those Shoes, which showcased funk rhythms and searing guitar textures. The band's music on Hotel California and The Long Run had a more colorful palette. Felder led long jams, demonstrating his technical skill and ability to engage his audience through sheer musicianship, contributing equally to Eagles shows. Felder kept the Eagles' legacy together even without him. However, one riff formed in loneliness would eventually outweigh any record. Don Felder's Malibu home studio was the birthplace of Hotel California's renowned guitar solo, one of rock's greatest. Felder recorded a poor demo on a 4-track tape in 12-string guitar. Unaware it would form the Eagles' greatest hit. He remembers sending Don and Glenn 15 or 16 tape song ideas in a 2023 Yahoo Entertainment interview. A somber chord sequence and rich melody were one of those concepts. Hotel California was built around Felder's demo, cementing his rock legacy. Felder was surprised the band kept his original recording structure. He was surprised that they preserved my demo structure virtually exactly how I recorded it. This rare demo fidelity, especially in a large studio production, shows Felder's musical vision's intensity and clarity. On the instrumental, Don Henley and Glenn Frey wrote a surreal satire of American extravagance. Felder's melody created the song's haunting cinematic ambience, while the words caught the mind. Many think Walsh and Felder created up the famous ending solo while playing. Saying nothing could be further from the truth. Concept to conclusion, it was well planned. A meticulously choreographed guitar conversation followed. Besides defining Hotel California, this dual lead changed rock guitar solo expectations. Technically skilled, emotional. All lead guitar solo expectations were set. Over centuries, it became legend. Welcomes many guitarists and is in rock's Hall of Fame. Everyone still studies and admires this well-balanced, contrasting solo. Felder stands alone by Hotel California. The soloist plays it note for note as a compliment, not an excuse. He said people came to hear memories. Felder honors the song and the people who made it famous by staying true to the original. His claim to writing that melody has stood despite Eagles bickering throughout the years. More than a song. He gave the Eagles lyrical depth, technical prowess and lasting emotional resonance. Henley Frey rule. As the Eagles grew from a cohesive band to a global powerhouse, Don Henley and Glenn Frey gained power. In 1974, Don Felder joined the band and helped create its rock identity. He watched this transformation. In his memoir Heaven and Hell and in interviews, Felder compared the band's subsequent organization to a corporate model with Henley and Frey as executive decision-makers. Felder saw the growing marginalization of non-top-down voices as the Eagles became a business rather than a band. The 1994 Hellfreeze reunion, meant to celebrate the original chemistry, was the turning point. Felder, like the others, thought the band would return to equality. He was surprised when Henley and Frey proposed a new financial arrangement that gave them 70% of revenues and 25% to Felder, Joe Walsh, and Timothy B. Schmidt. Felder's place in the reunion dwindled. He still performed and co-wrote the band's greatest song, but he was excluded from all major decisions. Everyone from planning tours to negotiating financial matters operated beyond his old group's bounds. It was like working under two bosses, Felder said, and not as collaborative as before. Any challenge to Henley and Frey was seen as insubordination, and creative ideas were typically ignored. His function was diminished by internal politics, not talent or contribution. This occurred as the Eagles were rewriting their fate and breaking their old ties. Felder challenged this new order as a protest against control, not fairness. He said it wasn't ego. It was fairness. Maintaining what we started. Now dissent was rebellious. The band was essentially dead by 2001, when he was fired. Once celebrated as a triumphal reunion, the Hellfreeze's overture symbolized the Eagles' shift from a band to a tightly managed brand led by two. A frigid finish. In 2001, Don Felder's Eagles' career ended abruptly and impersonally with a fax to his workplace. He told Yahoo Entertainment in 2023 that he received a fax saying he was out. After over 3 decades shaping the band's music and image, the dismissal was abrupt. Nobody met or called, just a harsh statement that showed how much the band's culture had changed. The way Felder was fired was startling and dehumanizing. The termination hurt since Felder believed the group had a relationship. Even while tensions were rising, he saw the Eagles as a partnership based on shared history and successes. I assumed it would be a band again, but they operated it like a company and treated me like an employee. The decision is emotive, as this comment shows. Felder helped write Hotel California and played some of the band's most famous guitar parts. However, his contributions didn't prevent his transactional expulsion. After that firing, Felder pushed for a lawsuit for wrongful termination, breach of contract, and unfair profit distribution, revealing one of the most personal inner workings of one of rock's most successful bands. This was followed by media attention, active, knowledgeable fans, and industry watchers learning about power dynamics for the first time. The action was never about compensation for Felder. He said in his memoir that it wasn't money. Honor and erasure were at stake. Helped build. In 2007, it was settled out of court. It permanently tarnished the Eagles' reputation. Felder was in a collision shortly after, but he didn't disappear or pout. The artist reclaimed himself on his own terms. Fire symbolism caused a flashpoint. Not to show his departure, but a cruel cautionary story about what occurs when power, ego, and control overwhelm creative partnership. It stops. Not to destroy anyone. Years later, Felder stated he wanted the truth. This sad truth was Felder's first step toward reinvention. Transition from institutional loyalty to artistic and storytelling autonomy. Suit and legacy. In 2001, Don Felder was abruptly fired from the Eagles, sparking one of rock's most public and revealing legal battles. After FACS fired him, Felder sued Don Henley, Glenn Frey, and Eagles looted, claiming wrongful termination, contract breach, and profit distribution. Lawsuits revealed the Eagles' internal problems, concealed beneath their flawless public image. Felder challenged the 1994 reunion's financial structure, which gave Henley and Frey control and revenue. For Felder, firing was more than retaliation. After years of creative and financial equity fighting, it was final. Lawsuits shook more than the music industry. It captivated. As court processes progressed, fans and media received unparalleled access to one of the world's most successful bands. Felder described a harsh workplace where his role was systematically reduced. In interviews, he said the conditions made it hard to continue. He described being excluded from business meetings and regarded as expendable despite his involvement with the band. Ego, hierarchy, and unrestrained authority tore the Eagles apart in the court battle, shattering their years-long harmony. Felder stated multiple times that the suit was not about him profiting. "I didn't have money issues," he told Yahoo Entertainment. Standing up for justice. The main goal was to leave a legacy and be recognized for his Eagles songs and creativity. His sincerity also extended to his desire to be recognized for his influence on the band's later success beyond composition. It went much beyond. Lawsuits were an unpleasant way to reveal long-held secrets. Felder settled out of court in 2007 without revealing details. Felder was not going to be eliminated, though. His career and personal life were changed by the case. He left a poisonous environment and could work on his own. He later stressed voice and agency, saying no one would tell the truth if I didn't. Felder saw himself as an artist with a career too powerful for institutional power to sideline by beginning legal processes. That widened the music industry's justness discussion, prompting others to speak up about legacy and authorship. Felder grabbed another weapon as the dust settled. He said, "The nest-shaking memoir." The 2008 memoir Heaven and Hell, My Life with the Eagles, 1974 to 2001 by Don Felder shocked the music industry. More than a rock biography, this personal story of power conflicts, betrayal, and survival was brave. Inside one of the most successful bands ever, Felder candidly described how the Eagles went from a collaborative, creative band to a brand ruled by Don Henley and Glenn Frey. The Eagles became a business, he said, setting the tone for a blunt book. The piece questioned fans' polished image. Backlash was quick. The allegations angered Henley and Frey, and Henley's legal team threatened Felder with breach of secrecy agreements. Apparently, Yahoo Entertainment tried to ban parts of the audiobook. Despite legal pressure, Felder persisted. "I didn't create it to destroy anyone," he said in 2023. "I could make it heavier. It was deliberate to be restrained." Felder could have revealed more, but he balanced honesty with dignity to show readers dysfunction without sensationalism. He was compelling, but Felder's honest, contemplative, and frequently self-critical tone stood out. He admitted to hostility and attrition in the band. This vulnerability founded the book, allowing rebellious readers to consider Felder's reaction to what was done to him. "I was trying to survive in an environment where the rules kept changing," he expressed. Instead of creating a self-portrait of a perfect victim, Felder managed to detail the convolutions of a man caught between loyalty and principle. It was this kind of emotional honesty that elevated Heaven and Hell beyond a tell-all. It became an act of therapy, the forging of truth, and one man's recovery. The public split into opposing camps. Some equated the memoir with needless grievance blasting, whereas many considered it a courageous overdue revelation. Heaven and Hell grew over the years into a truly seminal text of rock memoirs for what it had to say not just about the Eagles, but also about the darker underside of band politics and artistic control in general. He felt a desire to set the record straight in Heaven and Hell, an expression of his individuality. "If I didn't speak up, no one would ever know what really happened," he said. Thus, by going north in his story, he opened up the South, back again, to a discussion about integrity and authorship and the unmentioned costs of fame. Beyond the Eagles. After his highly publicized split from the Eagles, Don Felder faced a choice: retreat from the spotlight or re-emerge on his own terms. He chose the latter. In 2012, more than a decade after being fired, Felder released Road to Forever, a deeply personal solo album that marked his re-entry into the music world not as a band member, but as an independent artist. It was very cathartic, Felder told Yahoo Entertainment, explaining that the album's themes of betrayal, loss, and resilience mirrored the emotional journey he had undergone since his departure. The songs were not aimed at revenge, but rather at processing trauma and rediscovering his voice through music. Road to Forever was critically well received and featured collaborations with respected artists like Steve Lukather and David Paich of Toto. It was clear that Felder's reputation among musicians remained strong, even if his public standing had taken a hit in the fallout with the Eagles. But it was his 2019 follow-up, American Rock and Roll, that truly solidified his place as a standalone force. The album included appearances by rock heavyweights such as Slash, Mick Fleetwood, Sammy Hagar, and Chad Smith, showing that Felder was not only still respected in the industry, but also capable of rallying a cross-generational roster of talent. "This is who I am musically. Without filters," Felder said, asserting his creative independence. The impact of Felder's solo work stemmed not just from the presence of his iconic collaborators, but from the emotional clarity and authenticity of the material. Free of the internal politics and creative restrictions that pushed down on his years with the Eagles, Felder's writing broadened to include such themes as aging, self-esteem, loss of love, and personal freedom. He acted as producer and arranger and played guitar, and played his role as frontman. In every aspect of the music, he took back what had become ancillary roles in the last years of the band. On the other hand, songs like Wash Away and The Way Things Have to Be musically knew no boundaries as they expressed a feeling of having been resilient through personal reflection and self-assertion from the life put into the lyrics. Felder also renewed the connection with his audience by conducting the concert tour regularly. The live gigs offered a smaller environment compared to when he toured stadiums, but the energy present was no less. Fans appeared for far more than nostalgia. They came to see an artist with fresh material who was still working and evolving. Paying tribute to the greatness of the past in concert, Felder remained, cherished Hotel California and other classics, while putting greater emphasis on his new songs. "I'm not chasing what was, I'm creating what's next," he stated. He was continuously refactoring the definition of moving past public rejection after every album and performance, exhibiting how survival and accomplishments do not subordinate to the past. Felder's quiet reconciliation as Don Felder entered the later stages of his career, a noticeable shift emerged in how he spoke about his past. Not with the urgency of someone seeking vindication, but with the clarity of someone who had made peace with the unresolved. In interviews from 2024 and 2025, Felder no longer seemed intent on reliving every detail of his time with the Eagles. Instead, he reflected with emotional restraint and personal insight. "I don't want to turn my life into a long narrative," he said, illustrating a deliberate decision to move on, not by forgetting, but by setting boundaries. His path had taken him through betrayal, legal battles, and creative silencing. But his later reflections emphasized self-understanding rather than resentment. One of the most poignant revelations was Felder's account of attempting to reconcile with Glenn Frey before Frey's death in 2016. Though he reached out, his effort was met with silence. "There was a gap between us that will never be filled," Felder admitted, not with bitterness, but with a mournful acceptance that some divides, even with time, cannot be bridged. His decision to attend Frey's memorial and his respectful tone in media statements underscored a maturity that went beyond public perception. Felder wasn't pretending a friendship still existed, but he acknowledged the shared history and the importance of grace. That kind of clarity can't be faked. It's earned through years of reflection. Felder spoke some frank words describing his rather tortured relationship with Don Henley. "It is distant, but not hostile. There are things that I still do not like about the way Henley ran the band, but that's behind me," he noted. In explaining what forgiveness meant for him, forgiving is not necessarily absolving others for their own sake. It's release for himself from the heaviness of holding on to that anger. "I forgive, so I don't have to carry the burden anymore." That became the fulcrum of Felder's philosophy. This worldview saw forgiveness as a tool for freedom, not weakness. He wasn't sorry. He didn't rewrite history to smooth. He focused on his own well-being and purpose. Felder's lectures and public talks repeat these concepts. In innovative lectures and workshops, he warned young artists about invisible fatigue, the emotional erosion you experience when your ego silences your voice in ego-focused creative spaces. His courses covered psychological survival in high-pressure settings, not just music theory. Saying he's not waiting for an apology. "Finished what I had to. If it's not on the official CD, it's music." This statement crystallized Felder's identity as an artist, one no longer defined by the battles he fought, but by the peace he chose to safeguard. Teaching through experience. In the aftermath of his tumultuous exit from the Eagles and the years of rebuilding that followed, Don Felder quietly embraced a role that few might have predicted. That of a mentor. As his solo career progressed, so too did his engagement with younger artists and music communities, where he began sharing not only his guitar expertise, but also the hard-earned lessons that came from navigating the darker side of fame. Appearing regularly in guitar workshops, music seminars, and podcast interviews, Felder offered guidance that was rooted not in theory, but in lived experience. "I try to teach not just how to play, but how to survive," he said, revealing a more profound aim past the frets. Felder's message resonated with individuals in collaborative or corporate workspaces, where creative autonomy generally suffers first. He constantly warned about invisible burnout, the emotional toll of having one's ideas ignored. Felder said separation from decision-making in the Eagles hurt his identity and professional growth. He told Yahoo Entertainment that working for unappreciative people lowers your self-esteem. His experiences with artistic oppression shaped his views. Came out stronger, not bitter. The most important lesson Felder learned is leaving. Despite their size, certain creative environments might be toxic, he said. If a band feels like a job, not a collaboration, Felder warned in a podcast interview. He shows how to depart with dignity, sometimes at tremendous cost, through personal arcs. He encourages young musicians to be honest rather than profit. Success is reversed fate. Fame is not what matters, but being yourself in whatever situation. Despite his hardships, Felder does not teach bitterly. His coaching is balanced, exposing unpleasant shortcomings yet believing in improvement. He stated he wasn't here to explain what went wrong. Let me help them avoid that. Rarely discusses revenge or regret. Clarity, resilience, Pheredidids, and music's restorative power fill the whole. Felder shares his path, leaving a legacy beyond the Eagles, solos, and courtroom battles. Felder uncovered a vault no one saw coming when he thought he was done. Sound and survived 50 years. In 2025, Don Felder released The Vault, 50 Years of Music. An intimate reflection that went beyond a greatest hits album. Instead of repeating hits, the collection featured unreleased music from his Eagles and solo careers. Felder said these songs are memories of crucial times that never made the airwaves. The Vault symbolized imaginative persistence. Built during peaceful years when the spotlight vanished. The album's material and collaborators made it stand out. Felder was honored by Steve Lukather, David Page, and Joseph Williams of Toto, who joined him. Felder's guitar playing combined energy-packed rock and pensive ballads. And touching lyrics. His endeavor showed his instincts hadn't aged. They'd grown. During his Eagles career, several of these tracks were stored for years. Felder combined old concepts with fresh arrangements to reimagine those compositions with artistic freedom. Rewriting history for him wasn't the goal. Voiced old music. The Vault is an album about creative freedom reclaimed. Both fans and critics praised the album for its uncommon blend of introspection and reinvention. Felder claimed this isn't nostalgic. Finishing work meant to be heard. The Vault was a strong statement that his music and stories were continuously being made, not just a celebration of his past. Thanks for viewing. Enjoy this deep dive into Don Felder's narrative and the Eagles' secret truths? Like the video, comment, and subscribe for more undiscovered music history stories. Don't miss the following video. Definitely not to miss. There, catch you.